Hello. Hi, everybody. We are members of SisterLove. My name is Cheyanne Harris, and this is
Dayana, and I'm the communications manager at SisterLove.
So we're going to be talking about International Safe Abortions Day today from our perspective as members of a reproductive justice organization that is advocating for abortion access because that's something that is under threat in our state.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to this conversation. Let's dive in.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the current status of abortion access. We know that the stories just came out that 2 women have passed away from preventable causes relating to abortion bans in our state. So these women are Amber Thurman and Candy Miller. In the case of Amber Thurman, she went to North Carolina to get she tried to get a physical abortion, like the surgical procedure, and couldn't do that because she was stuck in traffic, which, is very real, minor mistake. The abortion medication, the pill, it's very safe, but there are sometimes complications. And so just what happens occasionally with miscarriages, there was leftover fetal matter still going on, and that caused her to have an infection. And they waited for 20 hours in the emergency room before they actually started to operate on her. And they waited till her organs started failing, and they were not able to save her life, which could have been prevented had they started operating earlier. There was an official state board that concluded that both of these deaths were preventable. But as of right now, in our state, doctors can face criminal prosecution if they do that procedure. It's called a C&D. The procedure is what removes the leftover fetal matter. It's very routine. It's commonly used after miscarriages, yes, and also after abortion complications. And it's a routine operation, but they were not able to do it. And in our state, they say that doctors can perform this operation if there is a reason to believe that the pregnant person's life isn't at risk. But it's not written in terms of like medical terminology. So it's very unclear for doctors, and they don't want to face prosecution. It can be up to 10 years in prison. They had to wait until her life was actively at risk until they could start, which is what caused her to pass away, which is incredibly unfortunate. They also can refuse to operate on that procedure. So it can be hard to find other nurses and other medical staff to assist in that procedure because they are also allowed to refuse operating in abortion cases. And then with Candy Miller, she also used medication and had some complications and then tried to have a self-abortion, which are abortions have existed for as long as people have been getting pregnant. And when we don't have access to safe medical procedures, that's when you see people passing away from trying to do their own abortions. And what we're finding out is that these cases happened both in 2022. There's going to be more coming out. We're in 2024 now. There have been more. They probably haven't been reported on largely yet. So just knowing that there's 2 just that we know about so far from immediately afterwards, there are more, and abortion bans are an active threat on AFAB's people's lives.
So I'll say that as a Black woman who can get pregnant, I think my feelings are valid. I feel the fact that it's up to the doctor's discretion because it's subjective, puts an area out there. I think that it becomes more about the doctor and how this may affect them versus the actual patient and putting, as we know, with women's rights and with our bodies in general, people are always trying to tell us what to do with it, even though we live in our own skin. I do believe that the policy that was passed definitely affects maternal health at a higher rate because guess what? If a woman doesn't want to have a child, they're going to take the precautions that they need to take, the steps they need to take to make sure that happens. I feel the conversation needs to change, and those who are in place to make those decisions shouldn't be old white men.
They shouldn't be legislated.
I've never in their life experienced a period, pregnancy, all the things that come with being a woman naturally. So I definitely feel like there needs to be a change in language and maybe so also in the rules of just what is considered. Because someone telling me, hey, you're not that bad, but I know what pain I'm experiencing, I can only imagine what these pregnant women were feeling at that time. To hear someone say, hey, sorry, but because of me and me potentially losing my license, I can't perform XYZ until you are damn near about to die.
Yeah, literally almost at death's door, essentially. Her organs were already failing. So now that we know what's currently happening, let's talk about the history of the day. So the International Safe Abortions Day was originated in Latin America and the Caribbean by women's groups. It was called, so specifically, the depenalization of abortion. And it's about highlighting the collective international global efforts that all organizations who are doing this sort of like reproductive justice advocacy, we're all fighting various forms of abortion restrictions. And one thing that I love about what this stands for is that it's not just a, yes, we're arguing on the legals, we need to have legal protections, but also safe abortions only come from safe communities, having communities that actually are supportive of women and pregnant people. And it just needs to be, it needs to be a holistic, it needs to not be a women's issue.
Yeah,
it's an issue, exactly. Or it's a full societal problem. And so that's something that we all need to realize and come together with. And we do, but within people who just feel like it's not there. It's not, they have no reason to be concerned about it, because it is. They do. And increasing levels of children in things like adoption centers, they're already over full. That leads to other increases of things that we don't want in society, crimes and things like that. It's also, teen pregnancy is a essential factor of the cycle of violence often. So being able to interrupt that for women to be able to have abortions when they need them is crucial to actually being able to build these safe, healthy communities that are able to rise up.
So yeah, I feel like that keeps occurring. Just even in the meeting that I had earlier, community is a big aspect of things. And I feel like we definitely need to shift the mindset of being an individual, because we all come from women. Like, it takes two to tango. It's weird in a sense, because it's like we have people who are putting policies in place to control women's bodies, but then detach themselves from it after that. Anything regards to that. And we need to switch from being reactive to being proactive. Like, it shouldn't take women dying for people to be like, oh, this may be an issue that might be important. We just, unfortunately, money talks, and it's all about evidence as well. So I think changing the narrative and just figuring out ways how we can do would be an asset. And honestly, the people that are in charge just need a wake-up call. Maybe you need another role. You don't need to be right here doing this right now. But yeah.
So I'm going to throw out a couple of statistics just to understand where we're at in this context. Absolutely. Planned Parenthood has reported that abortion is one of the safest medical procedures. It's got a much lower complication rate than many common other medical procedures. However, the World Health Organization reported that around 45% of abortions worldwide are unsafe. So we know that this is one of the safest procedures when it is conducted in a medical setting. But so many people are forced to try to find outside ways of doing that, because women have always needed to have safe abortions and in some way or form. And not having safe access to it does not prevent women. These two cases show that it does not prevent women from doing what they need to do to survive. Both of these women, both Amber Thurman and Candy Miller, both had children.
Black women, by the way.
Black women, yes.
For those who might have not heard the story, 2 Black women.
And that's a whole other aspect of it, which is really interesting. Not so much in the racial aspect, but in the economic aspect. Abortion bans do not stop wealthy women from being able.
Absolutely not.
It really just makes it harder for other women to be able to access the care that they need.
Control of resources, like trying to own women's bodies, and what for? I'll never know. I'll never understand.
Exactly. And I have a theory, but don't know.
Share your theory. I don't think it's bad to, yes, talk about the facts, but it's also important to have your insight on it as someone in the community that can directly be affected by it. Like, it shouldn't be policies are made and then the people it affects, they share their 2 cents afterwards. If anything, it should be reversed. The people who are being affected should be the people that have something to say and what's going on and how it directly affects our communities.
And women largely, almost entirely, are in favor of having, even though a lot of women and AFAB people are pro-life, they still think that it should be the person's decision. It should be that individual's decision, and not controlled by the government. And that's something that we're all in agreement on, but yet this is still the reality of the life that we're living in. Oh, so my theory, I do think it is related to the replacement theory that a lot of Republicans are really concerned about, because minorities now combined.
The majority.
Yes, exactly, are the majority, and they're concerned about there not being more white women. And white women are having abortions if they are college students, if they're trying to go somewhere, and having a child will inhibit that, which inhibits a lot of things, a lot of opportunities.
And I would also just say, before we move on to the next point, I think we just need to recognize that society is changing. Women in general, we do not prescribe to the traditional wife lifestyle. I know it wasn't until the 1970s, which is not that long ago because I'm a 90s baby, that women were even allowed to open up their own bank accounts. So the things that we used to need men for, whether that be safety, community, basic human necessities, and in return, we pop out children. That is our guaranteed seal the deal. That is no longer the case. So I think it goes back to the bigger picture of like control and who wants control and seeing that representation in color as well.
So let's talk about another reality that is the case for many people in Georgia who are trying to seek abortion care, and yet they're in a desert of that type of healthcare, because a lot of OBGYNs just in general are moving out of Georgia because they know there are many procedures that they cannot do that they need to provide. Yes. So I'm getting at crisis pregnancy centers, which are really the bane of my existence because they're so unethical and they predatory. They're predatory in the sense that they target women who are vulnerable, exactly. And in places where they might not have many resources, and they use SEO keywords, so they call themselves abortion clinics. That's what people find when they are Googling where, and they say that this is what the crisis pregnancy centers, we're here to provide resources, healthcare, and they don't do any of those things. They're not medical organizations. They're usually run by anti-abortion nonprofits. And many of the information that they provide people ends up being not correct. Many different forms of misinformation. But these are, to give like a specific definition, these are facilities that represent themselves as real clinics for reproductive health care, but then are actually run by anti-abortion groups, and they spread misinformation with the intention of discouraging and preventing abortions. They tell people that they say that surgical and chemical abortions are dangerous and medically unsafe. There can be complications, but they are one of the safer medical operations that can be done.
There's complications with everything. But
exactly. They talk a lot about post-abortion syndrome, which is not a real thing, but saying that afterwards, many women have PTSD and they suffer from depression and guilt and regret, which is not the case for many women. Obviously, that's a case-by-case scenario, but that's not like they talk about it as if it's a real medical condition that happens, which is not. And they also like to say that if you have an abortion, then you'll never be able to have children again, which has little
by case. Every woman's body is different. This is not a general.
Yes. And also with modern technology, you can have children in so many ways. So
and piggyback off of that. So these anti-abortion clinics, you're so worried about not quote unquote killing a child, but what happens when the child gets here? When this woman was trying to be preventative to begin with, whether it be maybe she's in a domestic situation, there just be she can't afford to have a child because of this economy. Maybe there's a lack of support. I just feel like that pours into so many other future issues to come, but they don't think about that. Like, where are you when I need you at that point?
Yeah, and they're nowhere to be found.
Nowhere.
Exactly. In terms of actually the systems of support that not only cause women to seek abortions in terms of economic instability, but then also make it so that productively and healthily raise a child.
I just do that.
Yes, we talked about how these do disproportionately affect Black women and people of color and even gender non-conforming people who still can be pregnant but cannot, it's harder for them to seek the care that they need. So we do a lot to try to bring awareness about these topics, to try and actually mobilize together and advocate against abortion bans as SisterLove.
Absolutely. And if y'all are, whoever's listening out there, our website is sisterlove.org. You can volunteer with us. You can get your education. You can get your free HIV testing, pregnancy testing.
We're offering PrEP soon.
We'll be offering PrEP soon. December 6th is our official launch date. So SisterLove is here to support you in various ways, or tell a friend to tell a friend so that we can continue to expand on our reach and the work that we do and to the people who really need it out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also under our resource page, we've got a specific tab for abortions. So if you're someone who you are in need of abortion care, we can help you get in contact with someone who can provide that, which is, so essential. That's really what we've got to talk about. We know that these two cases happened in 2022, that they are going to be more. There are more happening right now that have happened before forward. It's only going to continue to grow as an issue, and we have to decide collectively as a community that we're not going to allow this to happen. We're not going to allow this to continue.
And I would say that this is, to everyone listening out there, that this is a people issue. It's not just a woman's issue. We create the next generation. So those out there listening, whether you want to have kids, you don't want to have kids, whatever it may be, like, your voice matters, your vote matters in how we will be affected as the new adults and for the generations. So let's be the country that we are. So apparently, let's walk the walk and talk the talk as well, in supporting each other's decisions and whether we want to have children or whether we don't want to have children. The biggest thing is to stay informed and to be active in your community.
Yes.
And that's it for me.
One last thing before we close out: abortion very much be valid. And if you are someone who lives in Georgia and is a Georgia voter, then you should know that we are the closest what we have been to actually being able to create real change on a legislative level, on a state legislative level. There's only 6 seats to overturn in the Senate to have a Democratic majority, 18 in the House, and the date to start early voting is October 15th. Also, y'all should know that there has been a new legislation that says that all the ballots need to be counted by 2 hours after the polls close on election day. So early voting is especially essential. Yes, they are making it harder for, especially in urban city areas where there are more Democratic votes, for all the votes to be counted. So if you want your voice to be heard, if you care about abortion access, if you care about many of the things that are on the ticket this election year, then get involved and vote.
Also, if you are a resident of Georgia, I believe the last day you can register to vote is October 7th. But you can check, whoever is listening out there, online to see when voting or registering to vote closes in your community. We need your voices. They matter, regardless of how much they try to deter us from going in and voting. There's a reason why we fought so hard to gain, and there's a reason why they're trying to withdraw those rights from us by creating inconveniences for our communities to be present, because we are showing up the most we've ever showed up. The fact that Georgia even turned blue is historic itself. So don't listen to the naysayers. Be present. We need you. Your vote counts. Your voice counts. Let's make things happen. Let's do what we can. Thank y'all.
Thank everybody. Thanks for tuning in.